You've got a problem, change your fucking car.
It's lights out and away we go!
Hey, what's up, guys? Sean Woodson here with Drivée Digital Media Company. Today, I have a very special guest with us that will be joining us for an interview. Nonetheless, Mallory Dobbs. How are you doing today?
I am good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm in Indianapolis, and
Oh, cool.
yeah, the weather. We've been getting some pretty decent weather. It's been raining like on and off lately. What
Yeah.
about you? What's the weather like over there?
Yeah. So I'm down in Olympia, Washington, so quite a
Yeah,
little bit different. But yeah, the weather's been good the past couple days, surprisingly enough. I feel like the spring is always kind of like gives you a little bit of a teaser. It's like, oh, look at this nice weather you could have, and then it'll rain for like a
yeah,
month, and you're like,
yeah.
I love this place. It's great.
So, I was actually so I was looking at some research. It's funny that you mentioned that because I'm a big like landscape person,
Mhm.
and so I saw like your sky, like you guys have like a small like downtown, I believe, but like what really caught me was is it called like Mount Rainier or something like that? Or
Yep.
that's a pretty nice view. I love that about Olympia.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just a really pretty place. Actually, my team owner was just here for a couple days visiting, and she had never been to really Washington at all. And so we did
Yeah.
the Seattle stuff. We did a little bit of adventuring there. Kind of took them around downtown Olympia a little bit, and so they got to see a little bit of it. But yeah, it's like you can go down to the water in like 20 minutes. You can go to the ocean in like
Oh,
two
really?
hours. You could
Yeah.
go to the mountains in 2 hours and go snowboard. Like it's really cool because it's like I mean I grew up here. This is where I was born and raised, so it's kind of boring
Yeah.
because I haven't moved. But at the same time, it's a beautiful place, so I love it.
Yeah. Nice, nice. All right. So, um, going to start off with your childhood. Um, what are some of your favorite memories you can share with us, that you've experienced in your younger years that are pretty like memorable for you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things that come to mind. I think that, I showed horses from the age of 10 up till like I was like mid 20s. I still have a horse. He's just turned 18 last week, and I've had him since he was
Okay.
3. So horses are a
Wow.
really big part of my life. Yeah. And so
Yeah.
growing up, my mom and my grandma and I would all get to show together. And so, like, my mom used to show when she was younger, and then she kind of got out of it. And then when I got old enough to do it, my grandma started taking me, and it was really cool because I got to be really close to my grandmother and, like, get to go all over the place to Washington, Oregon, all these different places. And eventually ended up going to the World Championship show. It's World Championship. It's really a national championship. It's
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
United States, right? So it's in Tulsa, Oklahoma in June, and it was basically like the biggest horse show you can go to in the country. And so I went there a couple times with like my family and all sorts of stuff like that, and became like a world champion. And that was something really cool to say. Like, I mean, I did it when I became a world champion with my own horse in
Yeah.
2013. So when I was like,
Oh, wow.
however old that was, 2019.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that was really cool. And then like additionally on the flip side of that, my dad wasn't into horses at all. And so we did
Yeah.
cars. My dad did car stuff. So he restores cars, and he had a drag racing car. He had a 67 Nova tube chassis car.
Ooh,
And so,
yeah.
I got to race
That's
that a little bit
nice.
with him. And so we would do the whole like, okay, we'll drag race and see who can get the faster, time. And so we'd
Yeah.
be chasing, tens, hundreds, something like that. I'd be like, get out of the car, I gotta beat you, and it was
Man,
I think,
so I was
yeah.
gonna say you're a jack of all trades then.
Yeah, it's a very wide variety of skills and things I've learned growing up and things I've done for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice, nice. So, the next question was, did you have, well, where did if this will make sense, where would you say like your love for horses started as you were growing up? Like, where did you find, that love
Yeah.
or the passion for it?
I think it was really when I started to hang out with my grandma and get to do it with her. So,
Yeah.
before I got my own horse, I got my first horse when I was 11. And my
Hmm.
parents worked really hard to get me this horse because we didn't really grow up really that well off. And, my parents
Yeah.
made kind of like minimum wage. And so, they worked really hard to get me this horse when I was 11. But before that, um, my grandma would pick me up after school or whatever, and she'd be like, "Hey, we're gonna go to the barn and go hang out with horses and whatnot." And she'd kind of put me to work, but she would also let me ride her horse and stuff. And so I really got to
Yeah.
spend time. Like I remember like driving down country roads with my grandma, just listening to like country music blasting, just
Yeah.
like. And I lived in the city, it's not like we were like really
Yeah.
big like redneck hick town people or anything. But
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
really started to love being able to hang out with my family and do that. It was something my grandma had done since she was little, and so it's very much like a family thing that everybody had kind of done. And my mom, like I said, had kind of gotten out of it until I got old enough to really appreciate it. And then once I did,
Right.
then it was kind of like from there, it took all over my life. Like it was something that I gave up a lot of things in my life to show horses because it was, I had to
Mm.
go to the barn 4 or 5 days a week,
Yeah.
and so it was like I had to do, well, actually, we had a self-care barn, so I had to go 7 days a week and go clean his
Oh,
stall and
wow.
give him water and give him food. So it was, and I couldn't
Yeah.
drive, so my mom had to take me. And yeah, it was something that like once my grandma started taking me and something that I wanted to do, it was something that like I made the decision that like that was my passion.
Okay. That's very interesting. Very interesting. Your favorite TV shows growing up, cartoons, or even maybe like movies.
Yeah, let's see, favorite TV shows. Guilty pleasure, I watched a lot of SpongeBob SquarePants
Okay, we're we're
and
we're
Fairly
gonna be
Odd
good
Parents.
friends then. Oh, you're a fairy op.
I'm
Nice,
a Fairly
nice,
Odd Parents
nice.
fan. Yep.
So like we're like, I mean, you're 30, I'm 29, so we pretty much grew up
Yeah.
watching like the same things. SpongeBob and Fairy Odd Parents, it had me in a chokehold as a kid.
Yep. Okay, so you know what I didn't notice or didn't know
Uh-huh.
is that Fairly Odd Parents is very much a very small window of people that know that show. So I was so proud of myself. I made a Halloween costume with this guy I was dating at the time for
Yeah,
Cosmo and Wanda, and I was so proud of this costume I made, right? I made wings out
yeah.
of like hangers, I made the little wands, I made floating crowns with
Nice.
like we had headbands and then I took like a piece of like metal and made the crown out of foam and so it like floated.
Yeah.
I was so proud of this costume. We went to this party with like it was a little bit older of a generation of people, but they weren't old
Hmm.
enough to have kids that were like young enough to go through Fairly Odd Parents, and nobody
Right.
knew who we were. And
Oh my
I was
gosh.
so disappointed, and I did not realize
That's
the
one of the
window of
most
people who know.
legendary,
Yep,
one of the
agreed,
most legendary shows out there.
agreed.
Um, and SpongeBob, of course. I
Yeah,
I probably um like my niece. It's funny because like my niece, she's 8 years old, and like Fairy Odd Parrots, for example, uh, she'll like I'll tell her, I'm like, yeah, so I'm talking to her about it and stuff, and she's like, what's that? That I like she's like, what's that? I'm like, what do you mean, what's that? Like,
yeah,
YouTube is your best friend. But
yeah.
okay, so did you develop an interest for racing at this time, or did you have other dreams you wanted to achieve? And if so, what were they?
Um, it's interesting that you ask that because, like, I mean, my love for racing kind of developed later in my life, right? So I didn't start racing until 2000. I didn't get my first motorcycle. I mean, I raced cars with my dad, but I didn't get my first motorcycle until I was, 20 something. So in 2016. And I
Okay.
started racing the following year in 2017. And
Really?
yeah,
That wow.
so yeah, it was kind of
Yeah.
like I kind of threw myself into it, but I basically did a couple track days with some friends and then I loved it a lot. And I was like, I kind of want to do this. And it wasn't really that expensive to buy a race bike. And so I bought
Right.
this really crappy, it wasn't crappy. Had a lot of character, really
Yeah.
old R6 that I bought that was like $1,500. And so I figured
Okay.
if I hated it, then at least it wasn't that much of an investment. And then
Yeah.
obviously here we are talking, having this interview and, my love for motorcycles just grew every year. So,
Yeah.
um, it's interesting because like now I find my whole life is kind of changing. I've talked to a lot of people about this so I'm 30, I just turned 30 in January. I went to college, I got my engineering degree in civil engineering, I got my license. I've been a professional engineer now for however many years. So, I worked so hard to get my career going and doing all that. And then now I'm like, okay, I'm now going to Europe to go race, the Women's World Championship, and now I got
Yeah.
to figure out how to make work and also that work because I'm not quite, getting paid enough to like be able to quit my job or anything. But,
Right. Right.
I think about it. I'm like, if someone were to give me that opportunity to say like, hey, you want to go race motorcycles for a living for a bit? I'd be like, yep, I'd love that.
Oh
And
yeah,
it's
for sure.
very different. I mean, obviously, it's like the dream everybody like that races kind of wants, but
Right.
I never really imagined myself having racing be such a big part, and motorcycles really, the motorsports community be such a big part of my life to where I'm reconsidering a lot of my,
Yeah.
careers and where I'm living and all that stuff. So it wasn't something I
Yeah.
imagined. No, I imagined that I would be, this good little worker and, maybe still showing horses as a side hobby. And yeah, I never really would
Yeah.
have thought that I'd be where I am now in the motorsports community, but I'm excited.
Yeah. I would have to say is that I'm very impressed that, like you said, you got your bike in 2016 and started racing in 2017. Because when you hear stories of like race car drivers or even people who are into like MotoGP, uh, like typically like they're racing their whole lives in
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
one specific thing. So like,
Mhm.
it's like, yeah, it's very funny because that's funny that you say that because I actually always ask myself, like, is there at least like one person out there that just said, I'm gonna just start racing next year, and it's you. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah,
People ask me that all the time too, of like, when did I start riding? And I must have started when I was little, because that is a story, right? The story of MotoGP racers and, all these prodigies of people. And like, am I a MotoGP racer? No. Like, am I that good?
yeah,
No. Could I maybe be? Like, if I really applied myself, maybe. But like, I'm 30, so it's like I'm a little bit older on the spectrum of people, right? Which is terrible to say. Like, oh, 30, I'm
well, you're
old.
not
But
that old. Yeah, you're still
no, but
young.
like
You're
in the
still
grand
young.
scheme of things, right? When you're looking at racers and
Right, right.
athletes, right? They like, once you turn 30, it's like kind of like, eh. But
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, those are the people that I'm kind of been. That's what the people I've been racing against. That is the people that I will be racing against. There are people that is the story when they get groomed to be that way. And I don't know. I mean, a lot of people tell me like, oh, you're just naturally talented. And I'm like, I don't know. I've worked really hard to do this, and I'm competitive, and so it's something where like
yeah,
I always want to strive to be better, and I'll do
yeah.
what I can to do that. But yeah,
Right.
I'm not no Valentino Rossi prodigy or anything, but
Yeah.
you know,
Well, I'll be rooting for you for sure because I definitely love that story. That's definitely my favorite story.
thank you.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. For the younger girls out there who are trying to get into the world of motorsports, what advice would you like to give them to inspire the same path that you are on?
Yeah, just do what makes your heart happy, right? There's going to be a lot
Yeah,
of people that say negative things. There's going to be people that don't always believe in you. And if you believe in yourself, I mean, you will find people that will support you and keep those people around. But
yeah,
really you can't listen to the negative things that people say because most of it's out of spite.
right, right,
It's
yeah,
people always give advice or unwarranted advice, and it's just like, it's, if that's what you want to do and that's what your heart desires, do it.
great, nice, nice. So like this next part of the interview, we're gonna get into more of your into the racing. Um, So the next question here is going to be your first ever pro race. Take us through that day mentally. How did you prepare? How did you prepare for that big moment?
Oof.
What was your thoughts before, the lights out? And then after the checker flag, was it a sense of relief for you?
Yeah, I mean, my first pro event had stress and like anxiety regarding it basically all the way up to it. But
Yeah,
it was something, so I had basically in 2021, I said, I want to do my local club round. Actually, really backtrack that a little bit. It's like I didn't think that I'd want to do a national level event until Moto America came to the Ridge. And once Moto America
yeah,
came to the Ridge in 2020, I think I was like, I actually kind of want to like do that.
yeah,
And so
yeah,
that was when I really applied myself in my racing, because for a bit there, it was like I did club racing for fun and kind of just like the hang out with our friends on the weekends, ride
right,
motorcycles.
right.
And so then it was like, okay, well now I actually want to like do something bigger with this. So I got coaching from JP, Jason Pridmore, and uh, really applied myself for that. So it was really a long build up, right? In 2021, I was like, I'm doing
Yeah,
it next year. This is happening. um, load in and everything, unpacking everything. Like I was kind of in disbelief, like all of it coming together and like sitting there, with all these people and these big semis and all this stuff. And I'm just with my truck and trailer, my one little pop up, and I'm just like, I'm just a little like
yeah,
peon, and, it was just a whirlwind. Like it went by so fast, and it was like, I was really worried about qualifying, and then I real like we ended up being actually really well in our qualifying spot. We were still in the back of the grid, but we were up a couple spots and we were well within the window, so that was cool. And then like
Yeah.
really my favorite moment was like sitting on the grid. And this was like the moment I dreamt of, right? I was sitting on the grid with the umbrella, with the generators, with all the people and the
Ah,
people milling
yeah.
around and the handshakes and all this stuff. And
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
sitting there, and I was just like my buddy has a video that he posts. I posted on my Instagram like right after that, where he like walked around the bike and whatnot. And like
Yeah.
that moment was everything that I dreamt of just like, oh my gosh, I made it. This is happening. And that was where like
Yeah.
before like all this stuff, before the grid cleared out and everything, I was like, I just want to like remember this moment right here. And
Yeah.
so
That's very important.
it was super cool to be like, okay, we made it. That was my goal. Like we did it, and
Right. Right.
then of course, once the lights go out and everything, nothing else matters, and it's a race time,
Oh
and it's
yeah.
like, all right, so the
It's
jitters
race
were
time.
there. Yeah, the jitters were there when we did the warm-up lap. When we did our warm-up lap, I was like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. We did the warm-up lap, we came back around, and then I get up to my grid spot and I'm like, all right, let's go. And it was like
Yeah.
instantly like game face, nerves were gone, like I was just ready to go show everybody what I could do.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then after the race was over, I was like, oh my God, that was so cool. And basically I was like, I want to keep doing this.
Yeah, you're hooked on it. Yeah, you got
Because
hooked.
that was when I was like, all right, we're gonna go to Laguna in 3 weeks, and I had never been to
Yeah.
Laguna because that was like my experience. I was like, okay, well maybe if I like want to go, like I want to try to race a track I've never been to and see if I could do it.
Right,
And
right.
so I'd never been to Laguna, and I went down there like 3 weeks later and did my second
Yeah.
round and qualified, and then it was like, all right, well like, okay, well it wasn't a hoax. I'm qualifying at the Ridge round, like we could do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that's very yeah, it's very interesting. And man, I feel like I feel like you're living out a lot of like people who like who hasn't like raced before. I think you're living out a lot of like what people are wondering. Because like what really hit me the most is when you said like when like you're just sitting and with the umbrella and then like people are walking around and like that really hits like to the heart with when it comes to like because I mean I me personally I like racing in all shapes and forms, but yeah, because it's just something to like wonder, like when you make it to that point, how would you feel in that moment, like even before like the lights go out. It's the reason why I asked that question, because a lot of people wonder that.
Yeah. It's
um
a lot.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Let's see, so your best racing memory is getting your first top 10 in Moto America. I'm certain that was a very hard fought weekend for you, and you had to work hard to get through the field to get in that position. Did you face any adversity that weekend? What are some of your like highs and lows that you faced from that weekend?
Yeah, so I'm trying to think of when. So our first Super Hooligans round. Oh man, it all blends together. Our first Super Hooligans. Well, actually, I guess the Ridge round. Yes, we did. Oh, so we did Daytona, and we didn't quite finish top 10 at that round. So my first top 10 would have been at the Ridge with the
Okay.
Hyper. So that weekend we had a lot of technical difficulties with our rear sets. We were trying to something out with some modifications, some custom. So with the Hyper Motard, there's not a lot of race parts for it, standard.
Yeah.
So we had to kind of come up with some custom stuff, and we did some custom mounting on the rear sets. And every session we went out with on that Friday, we lost a bit of our rear set, and things kept happening, and I was like, guys, what are we doing? There was a little bit of a come to Jesus moment. But yeah, I mean, there's always adversity in every race weekend, and that's kind of the thing about the behind the scenes stuff that everybody loves to share now, and doing the vlogs and everything, is because really, like, it's hard for me to pinpoint all these, because I mean, we did 10 rounds last year, and every round there
Yeah.
was probably some sort of adversity, a flight getting delayed, a thing getting lost, a part breaking, a crash, like. That
Mm.
is something that has happened almost at every race round, and that's what all teams are kind of dealing with. Like, no team really can say that it's like, oh, it was a perfect weekend, I mean, props if they
True.
can, but
Yeah.
getting that first top 10 at my home track was kind of bittersweet, because it came full circle on. So we did the first two, our first two pro rounds, and then we decided the next year that we were going to do the full season. And the full season of Supersport kind of came as a kind of a jump in, like headfirst kind of deal, where I wasn't really
Yeah.
planning on it. I was just going to do Super Hooligans, and was talking to somebody and they were like, you just got to go for it. You're never going to be ready. I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm doing it. So
Yeah.
I did Super War and Super Hooligans, and that was crazy because like even my crew chief who's been racing in Moto America and stuff for a long time, he was like, the fact that you did 2 bikes as your rookie season, he's like, is a little insane. And I was like, well, so yeah, I mean, that was definitely like that Ridge round for sure. And the adversity on that one was that we got the top 10 on the Super Hooligan, but then I had to also race Super Sport. And so, I feel like our results could have been better if we had just done one motorcycle for the whole weekend and focused on that. But like, because we did 2, it was like, okay, so now we have 2 practices, 2 qualifying 1s, 2 qualifying 2s, 4 sets of qualifying, 2 races a day. Like
that's a lot.
And so basically from the start of the day, it's, go, 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 and a lot of ride time. And, I was in good shape, but it was like, oh, I'm not quite in good shape. Like it was just a little bit like, okay, well, like it could have been better. So yeah, there was a lot of stuff like that, the little things, and it's like in the moment where you get to have the highs of like, oh my goodness, we got our first top 10 in Moto America in my career. That was the moment I got to think about all the stuff before that, the 3 a.m. putting the bikes together before load in, all that stuff, like, because there was a couple times this season where it was like we were building bikes and putting things together, till 1, 2 a.m. until the race round, and then we got to pack up everything and we got to head to the racetrack. So
that's dedication.
And that's what just happens. Yeah, and that's the behind the scenes stuff that no one really sees, right? They see the top 10, they see what's happening, and they're like, oh, I could do that. And you're like, I mean, you can, for sure. I'm not saying that you can't, but you got to be ready.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Takes a lot of dedication, for sure.
Yeah.
What type of training are you getting into in the off season?
I'm doing a lot of cycling these days, which I never thought I'd be a cyclist, but that's what a lot of racers do for their off season training or any sort of stuff like that. I also go race down at Chuckwalla Valley Raceway, which is down in SoCal. They have racing in the winter because it's too hot in the summer. So they race all winter long. So basically from October to April, they race down there. So we're doing a little bit of racing down there. Cycling, playing Xbox, learning new racetracks.
Nice.
Like
I'm
that,
a PlayStation guy. You gotta join the PlayStation guys.
No.
No. Yeah. Okay. So you're racing in the inaugural 2024 FIM Women's Motorcycling World Championship. Very massive, very, very massive accomplishment.
Thank you.
How are you feeling about this amazing opportunity for you?
It has been a whirlwind. It has been chaotic to say the least, but it has been so exciting. And I think it's been like I've been talking about it and I'm telling people about it, and every time I see like people, like, because I still am really like active in my local track day community and racing community, and so I go to events with our Washington peeps, and they're like, "Oh my goodness, this is so cool! I knew you when you were like just racing when you just started," and so it's been really cool for everybody else. And they're like, "You're talking about it so nonchalant," and I'm like, "Okay, well, it's been 2.5 months since I found out I was in the championship, and I have yet to ride a motorcycle in Europe." So at this point, I'm really ready to go ride. I'm really ready to go test. I'm like that, I think, is when it's going to feel real to me. Because at this point, it's like I've talked about it a lot and it's happening. And I'm going to Europe and all the talking about it and all these things. And like, it hasn't really hit me yet. I don't think that this is happening. Like, I'm going to be in the World Superbike paddock, which is something I never thought I would ever say in my life.
Yeah.
So,
never say never. You never know.
It's true. It's so true. And I look back and I think like I almost didn't apply for the championship because, I was like, well, it's a women's world championship. Well, it's in Europe. Like, well, it's this. And then, when they announced the price of the championship, the amount of money I spent last year in Moto America was way more than the amount of money that they're charging for this championship.
Wow.
Yeah. And so for me, like it was, and other people don't experience that, right? Like even the girls over in Europe and stuff like that, they're like, oh my goodness, this is so much money. And I'm like, I don't have to prep a bike. I don't have to buy the spares. I don't have to because that was the thing. Like I bought my own bike. I prepped it. I bought the spares, I did the transportation aspect of it. Like I did, I hired someone to do the transportation, but like I did all of that and spent a lot of money and time to do it because I was like, I just need to do it. And I'm glad I did, because if it wasn't for that, I don't know if I would have made it into the Women's World Championship, because a lot of, I think, my resume and who I am as a racer and what I've done in such a short amount of time relies on the fact that I did Moto America and I was there doing the thing all year last year. So that was really me making a name for myself, and I'm glad I did. But then I was like, well, I don't know, maybe I just want to do another Moto America season. Like, I don't know if I want to do this women's thing. Like, maybe I can't get to Europe. Like, it's going to be hard with work. And like there was a
Right.
lot of things where I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna do it. My boyfriend was like, I mean, worst case scenario, you apply and then you get in, or you don't get, like, what if you don't get in? And like then you can at least say you applied, you didn't get it.
Right.
So
Right.
he kind of helped motivate me to really like apply for it. And yeah, it was, they were like, we're going to let you know by the end of February. And then of course it was like randomly January. I get an email in the morning. I wake up and I'm like, oh, I have an email. And I didn't want to
Yeah.
open it. I was like, I'm not going to open it. I'm just going to like get ready. I'm just going to like look at it later. And my friend was like, you should just forward it to me. I'll read it. And then of course, like I can't forward an email without reading like part of the email. And of course it
Right.
says like acceptance in the headline. So it's like,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's
That I'm
still.
I'm pretty sure that was a crazy moment for you and your boyfriend, like first thing in the morning, and you're just like,
Yeah.
"Oh crap, we're
I
going to
actually,
Europe."
yep, and I made my video. So the like cool part is I'll always remember it because like then that morning I made my video about being like, okay guys, I need to crowdfund some money because I don't have sponsors for this yet. Because how do you really get sponsorship acquisition without knowing you're going to be in a program? Like, you can't be like, hey
Yeah.
guys, I need sponsorship for this program. I might do, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So really it was kind of they gave us 7 days to come up with a deposit. And unfortunately there were some girls who just couldn't come up with it. But
Oh, really?
yeah, so there was, like if I was browsing through social media to see who could post and stuff like that, and there was a couple of people who just couldn't quite make it. But
Hmm.
I had posted that morning a video of me saying, "Oh my God, guys, this is happening! I'm going to Europe." Like it was,
Yeah.
it captured like basically everything I was feeling, and it was just like I said, disbelief. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely still like I've talked about it. It hasn't really hit me, but yeah, it's a really exciting thing to be a part of for the first year.
Yeah. Hometown girl from Olympia, gonna be representing in
Yep,
Europe. Let's go.
representing
Let's
America.
go.
Yeah, the only American.
Let's. Oh, you're the only American.
Hmm.
Yeah, you got my fandom. Let's go. Let's go. As a motorsports enthusiast as yourself, being as your main focus, have you ever gave into the thought of competing in other competitions like open wheeler, maybe possibly IMSA?
Um, I don't know that I've ever really thought about it. If someone were to give me the opportunity, like if someone were to approach me and be like, "Hey, you want to do this thing?" I'd be like, "Yeah." Like
Yeah.
being a motorsports enthusiast means that like basically you're excited about a lot of things, and so like
Right.
I don't feel
Exactly.
like I think a lot of how I got where I am now is because I said yes to a lot of opportunities and a lot of things that came my way. And I think
Right.
it would be the same with that. Like if someone were to approach me and say like I want you to race a car, I'd be like, all right, cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's one of those things where like being in the industry and knowing the people is part of how you get where you go, right? So like you have to know a lot of people in the industry. Like I doubt anyone's gonna come to you and be like, "Hey, want to race IMSA? This car? Like I have a car, I have a seat
Right.
open," and you're like, "Who am
Right.
I from Joe Schmo?" You know. But yeah, I mean, I think that my passion lies with a lot of things at this point, and racing for sure. Being in the racing community brings me a lot of happiness.
Nice, nice. Being a woman in racing and an industry that is very clearly focused on male talent, what adversities have you faced during your time in the sport?
I feel like this is a very hot topic these days because obviously we're trying to push the whole women into motorsports thing. And I actually
Yeah.
just read a post today by a race car driver, a female race car driver that posted on LinkedIn about, everybody says like sponsorship is so easy for women, and the whole facts behind that of saying like, well, no, it's actually not because most companies still don't sponsor women. They still sponsor men. Like
Yeah.
they don't want to race females
Right.
regardless of how good they do. They look at their socials before they look at their results. Like I would love to say that I haven't experienced adversity. And I mean, I feel like all females in
Great.
motorsports have at different varying ranges, I
Right.
think the hardest thing for me is to be taken seriously. I want to be known as a fast racer, period.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
want to be known as a fast racer for a female.
Oh yeah, for
There
sure.
has been plenty of times where I've been, oh, you're pretty fast for a girl. Those things have been stated to me, like they stated to me, and it's
Hmm.
not something I appreciate. And it's like I
Yeah.
appreciate
Yeah.
that. Oh, thank you for saying I'm fast, but also why did you have to add the part for the end?
Right. Right.
Um,
Right.
yeah, and just, my personal life has taken hits to that. I dated a racer who was very negative about me and what I've accomplished and said everything I
Really?
got was because I was a girl. And,
Mm.
it was because he was also a racer and he was upset that he wasn't getting the same opportunities that I was. And he thought it was because he equated it to me being female. And so, those things still happen. And
Yeah.
it's, I work 10 times harder than everybody else to do the same thing that everybody else is doing.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
I am the diversity, right? I am a minority in the sport, which makes it a little bit easier to sell some sort of saying like, oh, I'm the only female in super sport, last year with Kayla Yakov as well. But, being
Right.
that we're one of a few female racers, it's like, okay, well, we can sell that as sponsorship, but like, then still like, what are we selling,
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that of just like, yeah, being taken seriously, being given the same opportunities. Like, yeah, we work 10 times harder to be taken just as seriously as Joe Schmo down the
Right.
street. So
Yeah. I love that. I love that you said that. You don't want to be taken serious as a fast driver for a woman, but
mhm.
just a fast driver in general. Like yeah.
I
Like
I want
really.
my
Oh
reputation.
yeah.
Like it was actually, I had this conversation with my team owner, Maddie, with SecMet, and she, I was saying like she called around and asked about me as a racer before she, hired me, and
Yeah.
before she picked me up, and she said, I asked around and everybody's saying how fast you were. Yeah, so my team owner was calling around asking about me and stuff, and she said, everybody said how fast you were and how great of a person you were, and I said, you know what, I really love that because I really want my reputation to be that I'm fast. Like that was really it.
Yeah.
It's like I want people to be like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, she's really fast, and she, whatever else comes with that. But like,
Yeah.
really, I don't want them to be like, oh yeah, well she's, drama or she's this or all these things. And it's like I just wanted like the first thing that people say would be like, oh yeah, she's fast, she's the real deal. That's
Yeah.
something I've worked my entire race career to do, and that's hard to do,
Nice.
right? Because you have that many more eyes on you and you're judged that much more easily for the little things that you do. Things that happen to
Right.
women in motorsports get judged so much more than
I
everybody
believe
else.
that. I believe it.
Yeah.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna get into I would like to call this like the fun random part. So gonna get to, we want the people to just, to connect to you in a sense.
Hmm.
So all right. So your favorite pasta dish.
Tortellini. I can
Mm.
make some bomb chicken pesto tortellini. That's
Oh, that
probably my
sounds
favorite.
amazing. Sounds
Hmm.
amazing. Let me know if you've been to this place or not, but Buca de Beppo or Olive Garden?
Hmm. I'm trying to think of the last time I went to. I don't even remember the last time I went to a Buca di Beppo.
Yeah.
I don't know. Olive Garden's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's funny because I have a hack when I go to Olive Garden. The hack
Uh-huh.
is you get pasta dish, right? Obviously, and then you get soup, and then you have
Yeah.
it's endless soup. Well, and a backdrop. You sit in the bar because then you get more service because there's more people
Oh,
and there's less people, right?
yeah.
So then you can get more soup because they'll be paying more attention because they're like walking around more. So then I'll
Right,
get
right.
like 2 or 3 bowls of soup. That's basically my dinner. And then
Nice.
I take a couple bites of my pasta dish and I take it home. And then you get basically 2 meals out of one.
Okay, I might have to, you know what? I might go to Olive Garden tonight and use that same I might use that same hack tonight.
It's so good.
All right. So the next question is, if you had a chance to meet any celebrity in the world right now at this moment, who would you choose?
Oof. Any celebrity.
Any celebrity. It's got just one. That's I know it's a tough question, but because there's a lot
Oh,
out
yeah. I
there.
don't know. Oof. It's actually funny because like I feel like I've met a couple celebrity. Well, I met like Keanu Reeves down at the racetrack.
Oh,
He like
really?
rides down there with our buddies. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's like he hangs out with everybody, and he's like just like basically as everybody describes.
Right.
I'm trying to think of like who I would want to. I don't even know. I feel like you never really want to actually meet the celebrity that you really idolize because they say never meet your role model, and I feel like that's true.
Yeah.
Mm. So
Okay.
I don't know if I have one.
Okay. Okay. No, no worries. No
I'll come
worries.
up with an answer later when I'm like off. It's like, oh dang it, I should have said.
um, your favorite vacation destination is Cancun, but what is your favorite American city to visit?
Favorite American city.
Give me top. Give me
Uh,
three. Give me three. Give me three.
3 top cities. Okay.
Yeah.
I traveled a bunch last year, which was like the because my family didn't really travel much when I was younger,
Yeah.
and so I didn't really travel a whole lot. But then this summer or last summer, I traveled a bunch around America. But then of course you don't really see the cities because you're like
Yeah.
you go to the airport, you go to the racetrack, you go to the airport,
And then
like,
go right back home. Right.
and then
Right.
you're right back home and go back to work. I love Dallas. My mom lives in Dallas, and so I go visit her a couple
Nice.
times a year or once a year at least. And yeah, I love Dallas is one of the cities that's like so big. There's such a variety of things to do. They have so much food there to eat. Like,
Yeah,
it's just a
yeah,
cool place. What else? I'm not really big of a city person either. Like, honestly, like we went up to Seattle last weekend and I was like, yeah, I'm kind of citied out now. I'm good. Like, I
yeah,
could use a couple months away from the city.
yeah.
It's the driving in the city I hate. Seattle is honestly, really pretty, like in the summer and everything like that. When it's like nice out, like Seattle would probably be one.
Yeah.
Um,
I would love to go there one day, actually.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
really pretty. And then I've been to New York once, and I would love to like wander around some more of New York. We
Yeah.
went to like the Twin Towers Museum and like kind of did some touristy stuff. Went to the Statue of Liberty.
Nice.
Um, when we were around the area, went to
Yeah.
Philadelphia. Like those places are cool to go like visit
To visit, yeah.
for a small amount of time.
Yeah. Oh, it's funny you say that because I actually lived in New York for about a year and a half.
Oh, wow.
And it big like coming from Indiana to New York was like literally it almost felt like I was on another planet.
Oh, I
Like
bet. I bet.
yeah, it's crazy. Like in every aspect, the traffic, the food,
Yeah.
um, just like how many people are in just one place just blew my mind for the most part.
It's
Like, you know,
crazy.
yeah,
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 I remember we tried to go to New York. We were gonna go to New York and go like drive around and then park and whatever and go see the Twin Towers. And I remember we were driving my boyfriend at the time's dad's truck, and we couldn't even find a parking garage that would fit the truck because all the parking
oh
garages were
man,
so small. And
yeah,
so we went from Philly to New York under the little tunnel thing, which is also
yeah,
my engineering brain got all nerdy because it's like the
yeah,
underground tunnels are super cool.
yeah, it is.
Because they built those like forever ago, and you're like, how did they even do that? So we had to go back to Philly, park on the Philly side, like in a parking lot, and then take the ferry over to New York, and then walk because
Dang.
literally like there was nowhere to park the truck, and it was just like a normal like I don't think it was a dually, but it might have been a dually, and it was just like all the parking garage attendants were like, no, we can't fit you here, like please go
Yeah,
somewhere else.
they got scared of the truck.
Yeah, they were like, no, you can't.
um, what is the weirdest thing you believed in as a kid?
Leprechauns.
Are you a Notre Dame? Are you a Notre Dame fan by chance?
No, but
No.
I had a friend who I don't even know, like a kid, this girl in elementary school who was like very adamant about leprechauns being real, and she was like
Yeah.
very much like they live blah 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 and these things, and she'd like tell me about it. And so
Yeah.
for a long period of time, I definitely thought the leprechauns were real. I just couldn't see them.
Yeah. I think I don't know. That's a leprechaun. I'll probably say the tooth fairy for the longest for me.
Yeah,
Tooth fairy,
yep.
yeah. Like like when my tooth, I don't know, like I used to you know, I mean when your tooth is loose as a kid, it felt like it was like you're dying or something, you know. I was just like, oh, I'll be in bed like this, like, oh my, it is just a tooth, like, come on,
Yeah.
wake up. But
It's just like it's a weird, unnerving feeling though. Like all of that was
yeah,
just like weird. You're like, my teeth shouldn't be like falling out. Like this is just not how humans should work.
right. I'm only 7. I've only been on this earth for 7 years. Why are my teeth
And you're like,
falling out?
now you're losing your teeth, and you're like, what? What did
Right,
I do to
right.
deserve this?
Oh man. All right, so here's the last question. Um, if you can describe your relationship with your best friend in 3 words, what would it be?
Hmm.
You can be
um,
open or you can be closed
I was,
about
yeah, I was
it.
like, basically the first two words that came to my mind were crazy and chaotic.
Uh-huh.
And probably just fun. I think that would
Fine.
probably be it.
Yeah.
We're a lot of fun. Like, just, yeah, just a little bit chaotic, but
Yeah. Do they ride
people
bikes
think we're
with you?
funny. No, her boyfriend does. I would say like I have a couple best friends. Like I have two best friends that still show horses or used to show horses that I grew up with, and then like I've
Right.
got my friend's girlfriend who doesn't ride motorcycles at all, but she's an EMT, and so
Yeah.
she's responded to. She used to be an EMT at the racetrack, and so she has responded to a couple of my crashes.
Ah, okay. That's one way to become a
So
friend.
yeah, so we've been friends now for probably like I don't know, probably it's been like 5 or 6 years now, and yeah, she's great. But yeah, she does not know how to ride a motorcycle at all. Nothing.
Ah,
She
okay.
has learned a little bit how to like ride in first gear on a dirt bike, but
Gotcha,
She's yeah,
gotcha.
not for her.
Well, that concludes our our interview. Definitely some very interesting facts and points that you've made. Would you like to shout anybody out? Family, friends. If it's up to you. Or or or
Oh,
or better yet is well that and then I know we've talked about it already, but like any like last like closing advice for anybody out there, as far as like getting into the sport.
yeah, so we'll start with that, I guess.
Yeah.
For anybody trying to get out of this sport, I tell everybody to reach out to me personally if they really want to. I am always available and always reply when I have time, which sometimes doesn't always happen, but
Yeah.
I enjoy really being that role model for other people to kind of motivate them to push forward, and there's a lot of unsolicited bad advice in the motorsports industry. Everybody's got an opinion. And so I really enjoy being that person that hopefully gives a little bit of better advice. But
Yeah.
really, it's find somebody you can trust and somebody who's important in the industry or somebody you really value and have them motivate you. As far as other shout outs go, I'd really love to shout out a couple of my my team owner, Maddie Patterson. She is amazing. So she's created Suckmet International Racing, who I will be riding for in the Women's World Championship.
Woo,
Um,
let's go.
Woo! And then Doreen, who owns Ducati Richmond. It's a Canadian Ducati dealership. And she is still sponsoring me this season with the Women's World Championship, as well as still racing the Hyper Motard, at least at the Ridge Round at Moto America. So we're
Nice.
still going to be racing some Super Hooligans with it, and she still wants to be involved and come travel with us. She's been a great partner and great to work with, and really cool to have that support. It's so humbling to always have people in my corner that help me out. So
Yeah.
yeah, those two are my fave at this point. They've, like I said, it's so cool that like I wouldn't be able to do this without either of them, and so stoked about that. And yeah, I think that's probably it. Shout out to WIMRA, Washington Motorcycle Road Racing Association,
Let's go.
for being my grassroots where I started.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, you're the only American racing in the women's championship in Europe, so the whole country's gonna be rooting for you.
No pressure.
Let's do it. Let's do it. So here you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Mallory Dobbs, Sean Woodson here with Drivée. Thank you. Thank you for this interview. Believe it or not, this is my second interview with the
Oh, cool.
company.
Awesome.
So I'm still learning as I go on. But like I said, I really appreciate your time here and you sharing your story with everyone.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate your time.
All right, I'll be cheering for you.
Thank you.
All right, you have a good one.
Thank you too.
Bye bye.
Bye.